Maka's guides.
Hey guys, Maka here, and welcome to the Game of the Year video for the year of 2018. You obviously know what this is going to be about. We're going to count down some of my favorite games of the year. We'll go over a total of 15 of them. Now, obviously, I picked different games for different reasons, and we will get into that. But this is an annual series where I have picked games like Super Mario Odyssey, Forza Horizon 3, Metal Gear Solid 5, and GTA 5 as the best games of the year, and this year should be pretty fun. Obviously, this is a very personal list, so my list will probably not be the same as yours. Instead of complaining in the comments, I'd recommend that you just tell me what your top 10 games are and recommend games to other people. Do it in a positive way. Obviously, I was unable to play every single game this year, and the biggest game that I had to unfortunately skip was probably God of War, so that will not be on my list, unfortunately. Also, personally, for me, it is really important when a game has great gameplay. I'm usually able to overlook a bad story for good gameplay, and because I play a lot of games, I also really value a game for being unique, so those are kind of some of my inner biases on how I pick games. Now, for the first 5 games on the list, I'm going to try my best to do them in basically one sentence, and then we'll go into depth in the top 10. At number 15, I have Gorogoa, an incredibly unique and well-made, visually stunning puzzle game that I would recommend. However, most people would probably want to buy this one on sale because it is pretty short. At number 14, I have Grease, which I recently played. This game is the definition of art, has incredible music, and is very relaxing to play for a couple of hours. At number 13, I have Mutant Year Zero, a game that is usually way out of my comfort zone, but taught me that it is sometimes fun to go out of your comfort zone. I got completely addicted to it and really enjoyed my time with this strategy game. At number 12, I have Destiny 2, the Forsaken expansion. I thought that these were the necessary steps that Destiny needed to take in order to be relevant, and Forsaken was a great expansion. However, I don't blame people who don't want to keep paying to keep playing. In at number 11, I have Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which might be a little bit controversial because a lot of people are still upset by the fact that they got rid of the single-player campaign. However, I think the addition of Blackout and the focus on zombies was a welcome change and a good solid direction for Black Ops or Call of Duty in general to take in the future. Starting off our list at the number 10 spot, I have the SpiderMan game for PS4. This was a game that really brought it back to basics, in my opinion, and just was a game about having fun, beating up some baddies, and swinging around the city in classic Spider-Man style. I love this Spider-Man game for a lot of the same reasons that I loved Sunset Overdrive so many years ago. It's a game that doesn't really take itself too seriously in terms of its gameplay, and the open world is well designed, and the mechanics there to traverse the world make the actual movement around the world a fun part of the game, which is usually something that you dread and don't look forward to. Now, unfortunately for me, I'm generally not that big of a fan of like the superhero stuff, and I don't really resonate much with the whole Spider-Man franchise, so unfortunately for me, that brought it down a little bit. But I still had a great time swinging around the city and beating up baddies, enjoying the story through the game. In the number 9 position, I have Monster Hunter World, which is a game that really surprised me, a game that I didn't think was something I would really enjoy, but decided to bite the bullet because it seemed like everyone else was going to be playing it. I enjoyed this game with friends, but I also played it quite a bit in solo, and I really enjoyed how there were so many different character classes you could choose from, and how every class actually felt like uniquely different. There were classes that were really fast and nimble but didn't do much damage. There were obviously classes that were a lot slower. There were ranged classes, and I thought that was really cool how every class would be useful as long as you used it the right way. And I enjoyed the build-up going from world to world to world and fighting bigger and bigger monsters. Now, obviously, the game's not perfect. I wasn't really a big fan of how the game kind of just recycles the same enemies about halfway through. I thought that was a little bit cheap, but overall, I still had a great time up to that point. I thought the gameplay mechanics were really well done. I thought the actual monsters themselves were fun to fight. I thought the online component of the game was cool, and I liked how they had a lot of different ways to fight the monsters. You could kind of just play through the story, you could go through investigations, you could go through the arena, you could play solo with friends or randomly match-made. There was a lot of variety there, even though it's kind of the same thing, and for what it was, I really enjoyed my time with Monster Hunter World. In the number 8 spot, I have Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I believe this is the first time an Assassin's Creed game has been in my top 10, and there are obviously also a lot of reasons to like this game. Graphically, it's stunning, the audio is well done, the story is well told, the characters are interesting, the dialogue and voice acting is also well done, and it is a complete package in my opinion. I think the coolest part of the game was the attention to detail in recreating Greece and making the game feel authentic to the time period without making any type of major gameplay sacrifices. The game does a really great job of also balancing different playstyles, whether you want to be a warrior and fight your way through using a sword, whether you want to keep ranged and silent with your bow and arrow, or whether you want to do things like just walk around and stealth kill people. All of those options really seem viable, and the world seems to be created to keep all three playstyles in mind, which is something I really enjoyed, kind of switching up my playstyle as I played. It made me feel a lot more variety throughout the game and kept the game feeling fresh for longer. Another thing I did really also enjoy were the RPG elements, which kind of contradicts the fact that I also miss some of the original parts of Assassin's Creed, like the ability to stealth kill any enemy is kind of lost in this game because there is a leveling system, so you can't insta-kill enemies that are a higher level than you. So there are obviously good things that have changed with the series as it's been evolving. There's also some things that I kind of miss, but overall as a package, I think they did a really great job with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. In number 7, I have Forza Horizon 4, which may come as a surprise to some people because traditionally I've rated Forza Horizon games extremely high on my Game of the Year lists. However, I do believe that this one might have lost a little bit of its luster or its appeal because it feels very similar to some of the previous games. Now, I'm not saying that Forza Horizon 4 is a bad game by any means, but I also think it might have stuck a little bit too close to the formula that it's known for. Now, obviously the game has incredible graphics and amazing audio, all the way from the car engine noises to the songs that are on the playlists on the radio stations in the game. There are a lot of different ways to play. There are some online modes that allow you to play the game in single player, but feel like you're in a living, breathing world. There are seasons that change on a weekly basis as well that should keep the game refreshing for people who want to revisit it every couple of days. But I just don't know if all of those changes really added up to something that was revolutionary instead of being a little bit evolutionary. I still played the game for over 75 hours, and I still enjoyed the absolute vast majority of the time I spent playing. Forza Horizon 4 is the best racing game of the year, and I would highly, highly recommend it, even if racing games are typically not in your favorite genres or styles of games. However, with that being said, I think something drastic needs to happen to the Forza Horizon series in the future to keep it fun, exciting, and fresh. Especially for people who play them a lot. For number 6, I have A Way Out, a game that might surprise a lot of people because it's probably a lot higher on my list than it is on most people's best games of the year list. But A Way Out is one of the most unique games I've ever played, and if I think about it, I've never played anything like it, and I don't know if I will ever play anything like it ever again. It is truly a one-of-a-kind game. It is a truly unique vision, and I'm extremely happy to have played it. Now, I'm the first one to admit that this game is not perfect. I'm the first one to admit that it has a lot of flaws. The first flaw for a lot of people is that this game can only be enjoyed in co-op. You need to either know someone online to play with or have someone at your house to play next to you. Now, there is a cool feature where if you own the game, you can have a friend play with you absolutely for free. So that's kind of like their friend pass deal. And there are other problems with the game, like, for example, the gun mechanics or the shooting isn't incredibly well done by any means. But I just can't get over how cool of a concept it is to have a co-op game where both people are sharing the screen at the same time for the entirety of the game, and it leads to a lot of cool and interesting gameplay scenarios as well. When I think about a game that really took leaps forward in creative vision and innovation in game direction, A Way Out is probably at the top of my list for the year of 2018. A Way Out also does an absolutely great job with some of its set pieces and has some incredible camera work throughout the story. However, another criticism that a lot of people have is that it is probably around a 5 to 8 hour game, and it's kind of expensive, and it is not replayable at all. You'll play it once, maybe twice, and then you probably won't play it for at least another 3 or 4 years, but I don't think that's really a problem when you're discussing something like Game of the Year. Although games that are higher in the list are obviously going to be absolute complete packages, it is sometimes nice to appreciate games for doing something unique or something fun or something different, and just appreciating them for what they are. In at the number 5 position, I have Celeste, my second favorite indie game of the year. It is a beautiful game from its art to its music to the story it tells, and the way it introduces game mechanics as you progress through the worlds is delightful. The controls are also extremely tight, extremely fluid, and feel so natural and so responsive, and that is incredibly important for this game because it is an exceptionally difficult platformer, but never do you feel like it's the game's fault for your deaths, which I think is something that's really important for something like this to be enjoyable long term. Celeste is a game that is easy to play but hard to master, and that's something that always draws me in, and there's actually a lot of content to be had here. You'll find your way going through the story, then you can try to mop up the story by finding all of the strawberries, finding all of the VHS tapes and B-sides, then completing all the B-sides to unlock the C-sides and doing the C-sides. Basically, there are a lot of variations of levels. There's a lot of different secret levels. There's a lot of little collectibles to grab and challenge yourself. And there is actually a lot of content for a game that might, on the surface level, seem like it's not all that complicated. Also, another thing that I kind of liked about this game was that it didn't seem to take itself too seriously with the inclusion of something like the assist mode, where if you were to get stuck on a screen or a level, you can turn on assist mode and either give yourself some extra jumps, some extra lives, or go as far as giving yourself invincibility in order to enjoy what the game has to offer or finish the story. And I think that's really cool. I'm also really excited to hear that this game is coming to Games with Gold on Xbox Live in January, meaning a lot of new people will be able to enjoy it. And I'm also just as excited for the new levels in Celeste in 2019 as I am for the new levels in Cuphead, one of my other favorite indie games of all time. So that's why it's at number 5 for my list this year. In at the number 4 position, I have Hitman II, a game that was rated as my number 1 most underrated game of 2018. A game that I truly hope that a lot more people get a chance to play, and a game that I thought was incredibly well made. Now, the first thing to address is the fact that when Hitman 1 came out 2 years ago, it was an episodic game, which I think was a terrible decision, so it's nice that Hitman 2 decided to go back to its roots and release all of the levels at the same time. Not only that, but all of the levels in the game are all good to great levels, and none of them stand out as particularly bad in any way. And that's mostly to do with the level design, where it feels like there are multiple ways to eliminate your target, and each way seems like a viable strategy or method. I think Hitman 2 is kind of like the ultimate sandbox game. You're thrown onto a map, you're given an objective, and you just walk around and explore and find new and exciting ways to do different things, and eventually you'll come up with a strategy to accomplish that objective, and maybe you replay the game and then you find a new strategy and you evolve that strategy and you keep working on it to bring down your time and get a higher rating and find new weapons that might work in different situations, and so on and so on and so on. You learn the layouts of the maps, you learn where to find the cameras, you learn the travel paths of all the enemies, you learn what bushes you can sit in without getting seen, and as you play you really feel like you're getting better and better and better. And the game really encourages that, in my opinion. I think Hitman 2 did a lot right this year, and I think it deserves a lot of appreciation. It does have a really bad story, so if you're going into a Hitman game for story, don't do that. Instead, go in for the gameplay, and mostly only the gameplay. In terms of the stealth genre, which is kind of dying right now, Hitman 2 is a standout performer, in my opinion, and does everything right. And I think it deserves a high spot on my list because of how much I enjoyed it. In the number 3 position, I have Dead Cells, which is my number 1 indie game of the year. And this is another one that was a little bit of a surprise to me because it's not something that's typically in my normal genres that I enjoy. But this was a game I got addicted to very easily and very quickly. I actually pulled an all-nighter playing it on one of the first nights it was out, and that's not something I do very often. Now, the game is absolutely hard as nails. It is quite difficult to get through the first couple of levels the first couple of times. There are bosses you'll have to fight along the way. There are alternate paths and alternate routes you can take in order to reach the final boss. There are runes you can use to upgrade your character's abilities, which are going to be very important to your completions. And then there are also the weapons that you're going to be unlocking along the way, and the randomness in which the game is itself because of the fact that it's a bit of a roguelike. Now, although this is a difficult and frustrating game, one of its key features are its tight and responsive controls, which feel really well done. And the fact that you are able to jump around and easily kind of tell what's happening on your screen at a quick glance is super important. And I actually think the art style is one of the coolest parts of the game. I think the absolute best part of this game is that although it happens quite slowly, you do consistently feel like you are getting better and better and better at the game until you eventually get so good that it is extremely rewarding and gratifying. It also helps that the soundtrack is super great, and some of the common criticisms of this game is that it gets a little bit repetitive, which I would agree with. When you start getting into a little bit of a dying train, you kind of replay the same levels over and over and over again, and eventually it just kind of feels like it's better to grind out abilities than it is to actually get better at the game. And I also heard that there was a new patch in December that might have made the game a lot harder or a lot less balanced, so I haven't been able to go back and test those things out, but that might be something to keep in mind. In at the number 2 position, I have Far Cry 5, what I think is one of the best Ubisoft titles ever made, and a game that I played for a really long time and kept me very engaged. Now, I do believe one of the main reasons I enjoyed Far Cry 5 so much was because I didn't really play a lot of Far Cry 3 and a lot of Far Cry 4, so a lot of what I saw was new to me. The standout part of the game, in my opinion, was the story. It was a story that I actually paid attention to, and a story that I actually cared about, which for me is pretty rare. I really felt creeped out by the main antagonist of the game, and I really felt like I needed to help the people I was trying to help in the game. I had a really big sense of involvement and investment into the game, and I think a big part of that was the big, beautiful open world. I also really enjoyed how the main story missions were kind of serious, but a lot of the side missions were kind of a little bit more creative. I also enjoyed how I could stop at any point and kind of do my own thing, like hunt animals or go fishing. It also helps when things like the gunplay is well done, it has a really memorable soundtrack, and is just a lot of fun to play. I will admit that this one is probably a little bit higher on my list than on others' lists, but that's just how Game of the Year lists sometimes go. In my opinion, Far Cry 5 is a fantastic game, and for me, I'm going to rank it at number 2 this year. My number 1 game of 2018 is, to no one's surprise, Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, I could talk about this game for hours, but I will spare you the trouble. This is a fantastic game from back to front, as long as you don't include Red Dead Online anywhere in there. I'll obviously be focusing on the single-player component of Red Dead Redemption 2, as I don't have much to say at all about Red Dead Online. But Red Dead Redemption 2 is by far, without a doubt, the most impressive game I have ever played in my life. The amount of attention to detail is absolutely staggering, whether it's something as small as the fact that your character will talk louder should you increase the distance between you and the person you're talking to the fact that you can get overweight and develop lung problems should you eat a lot of food and smoke a lot of cigarettes in the game. I think it's pretty telling when you can take a 10-hour break from the story of a game and still enjoy those 10 hours doing side tasks, not even side missions, like hunting or playing poker or just outfitting your horse or your character. There are so many things to do in this game, and all of them are so different and varied. It honestly kind of boggles my mind sometimes just trying to think about it all. The breathtaking scenery around the entire map, the day and night cycle, the weather cycle, the physics of the game, the graphics. There's just so much to talk about, and so much of it is positive. The story is obviously extremely well told as well, even though it is a little bit drawn out in my opinion. I really enjoyed Red Dead Redemption 2 for the fact that it was able to do so much in one game, but everything it did was done to almost perfection. I think back about 5 years ago, Grand Theft Auto 5 became the measuring stick at which open world games were measured at. A couple years after that, we had Metal Gear Solid 5, which I think set a new bar, and now we have Red Dead Redemption 2, which sets the bar even higher and makes all the games earlier in this list look just a little bit less impressive. Unfortunately, I did think there were some limitations to the game based on the fact that it was set in 1899. Obviously, they could have gone a little more creative had the game been, Grand Theft Auto 6, but we'll get Grand Theft Auto 6 when that is ready. Nonetheless, that is my top 10 or top 15 games of the year. As a commentary for how the year was in gaming, I think it was a pretty solid year, but looking forward to 2019, I actually think 2019 will be a far more well-balanced and more impressive year for gaming overall, with a lot of really cool and unique games coming out in just the first 3 months of the year. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. It ended up being a lot longer than I anticipated. Sometimes I end up rambling a little bit, but I am pretty proud of this video, so if you drop a like, that would be really helpful. It helps the video get seen by other people. It helps the video rank a little bit higher in searches and stuff like that as well. Obviously, if you want to drop a subscription as well, you can subscribe to the channel and be informed when future videos come out. A special thank you to all the amazing people on Patreon for supporting the show. Thank you guys so much for the year of 2018 on the channel. It's been great. Have a lot of content planned for January and for the rest of the year as well. I will be kind of revising a couple of the things I do on the channel in order to be able to make more videos in 2019 while keeping them at the same quality that you guys are used to. Hopefully, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.